Bonjour, everyone. Hi, I'm Neshi Lokotz. Welcome to Communications from Home, which is my weekly live stream show. And tonight's Tuesday, June 15th. Can you believe that? I know. We're halfway through June already. I just feels like we're just in the middle of May. So anyway, welcome everybody. I am so happy to be here with you this evening. As you can tell, I'm in a little bit different space. I'm hoping the sound is going to be really, really good because I am in my new office. I'm not quite done with it yet, but I'm broadcasting from the new office space. And as you can tell, different wall color, got curtains to my right. And so I was going to say, because it's flipped around for me. So anyways, I'm so glad to be able to be here with you. I do appreciate it that you're here with me. I need to check something out first on my phone. I was going to make sure that my sound is good and my audio is good. And so I need to use my phone. And speaking of the phone, I have a new phone. And just trying to get used to that too. All right, so I'm at our page. And there we go. It says I'm live. Yay. That's always good. All right, so I don't see... there we go. It always makes me happy to know that it's working the way it's supposed to be working. All right. So while I'm here, I may as well give it a thumbs up. And I'm also going to send it over to the group, I think. There we go. There. I think I did it anyway. I tell you what, it's been a while since I've done some of this stuff, and so I'm a little rusty. All right, there we go. All right, thank you. If you did also like and share, I do appreciate that. It's one of those things with Facebook and also to YouTube. Hi, everybody on YouTube. Thank you for being here as well. That when we do that, that liking and that sharing stuff, it helps us to be in the newsfeed a little bit more often and near the top of the newsfeed anyway. So I have been looking forward to this all day because as I started prepping for the show, I just got really, I don't want to say excited, but it really pulled my energy field, up into that joy mode. And I will share with you why in just a second. Just want to say hi to a few people here. Look who's in the house, but Mr. Rob. Rob, you look familiar. So do you. And Julie's here too. Hi, Julie. And thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And Clara's here too. Hi, I'm Clara. And sounds good. Thank you for letting me know that. I do appreciate it. And so let me start a little bit with what we're going to be talking about tonight. Okay. The conversation is all about how we nourish our spirit. And when I was asking my spiritual team, so what should we be sharing about this week? And when I was asking, they were talking about feeding the spirits. And I thought, okay, yeah, we haven't talked about that for quite some time. And as I was getting, trying to come up with a title, it was feeding spirit was the very first one that I typed out. And it just didn't feel quite right. And so then it was nourishing your spirit. And that felt so much better because there's many different ways that we do this. And when I use the term feeding, some people might think it's more like, just food. Right? But it's so much more than that. And so nourishing your spirit. And here's something that kind of fits into this a bit, is that when Paul and I were working on repainting, because this was my mom's old rooms, right? And so over Memorial Day weekend, we painted the ceiling, we painted the walls, and and I did space clearing stuff in here to reset the template. And in many ways, just preparing the space for this new office and resetting the template really did feed my spirit, my soul. Number one, I was doing something that I love, which is space clearing. I also love to paint. Painting rooms is always so much fun. It's another form of meditation for me. And so it was a time that it felt really, really good. And so, when I was getting ready for the show and doing that preparation, I was thinking about how do we feed our spirit? Do many people even consider that? Do they consciously feed their spirit, their soul? And I would venture a guess that there's many people who don't, or maybe if they do, they're not doing it consciously, which is kind of a big difference, because when we do something consciously like that, it really does show us that confirmation that we have done our soul work. We are living our lives from our spiritual center, right, which is our soul. So we want to get started. I'm going to get my notes up here because I took quite a few and I want to make sure I hit all of them, right? Or as many as I can. And so let's see. Got to scroll my notes up toward the top. Like I said, I did write several. And so how have we learned how to feed our soul? That was a question that I asked myself. How have we learned how to do that? Even though we might not be consciously aware of it. We have learned from our parents, from whatever culture we grew up in, and also just from society, right? And so it might not be in a conscious way, but we have learned how to feed our soul. And here are some pointers. And if you have any other ones that you want to add to it, please put them in the comments, because that's where we learn from each other, right? Is when we make our voices known. So some of us have received some instructions in how to nourish our souls. And the first one that came to me is when you take communion. If you belong to a Christian church, right? Many of us have taken communion, or we were in classes so that we could take communion. Whether that's what you believe or not, is that communion is meant to feed us, right? To feed our spirit through the host, or the bread, the cracker, and through the wine, or the blood of Christ, right? So it's feeding our souls. But what does that mean? What does that really mean? And so for me, it means it feeding my spirit means that I am consciously aware of my soul, that I am my soul, right? And when we take in that kind of vibrational nourishment, it uplifts us, makes us feel better. Many times we feel happier, we feel more content, right? What are the emotions that are attached to it? For me, it is peace, it is calm, it is feeling happy. And here's another one. This is something that I experienced a few years ago. I want to say it was like 2015 or 16 or something like that. I had known about it, but I had never experienced it until then. And it's something that the Lakota Nation does, and they use something called wasna. And wasna is a dried buffalo meat that's pounded and ground into a powder, and then mixed in with chokecherry and chokecherry juice. And so it's something that you eat. Literally, it's food that you take in, but it is meant to feed your soul, to feed your spirit. And I experienced that when I was out in South Dakota, and there was a ceremony that was done, and they gave us wasna. And I have to say that experiencing it, I did feel that same way that I feel when we do our ceremonies here in the Potawatomi tradition, when we feed our souls or our spirit. And so it brings up, or it touches that vibrational part of you, right? Yeah. So, and the other one that kind of came to me is that how we feed our spirit or our soul is through prayer. Now, for me, prayer is that half of the conversation where we are asking or directing our conversation to God or the Creator, right? And it's our part of the conversation that we're having dialogue, whether it's out loud or quietly to ourselves. The other half of that conversation is the meditation, where we sit quietly and we're listening, right? And, last week or 2 weeks ago, when I did the live stream show about meditation and how our meditations have evolved or is evolving. And so here we have this um, listening, being in the quiet, and actually being within the consciously with the Creator, with our spiritual teams as we're listening, as we're connecting with them, right? So that conversation, the prayer and the meditation feeds our soul, feeds our spirit. And here's another one. I don't know if you guys are going to agree with me with this one, but in celebrations, and the number one that came to me was when we celebrate our birthday, the day that our spirit or our soul came into these physical bodies, known as our birthday. And so, for those of us that maybe have spent some time not acknowledging our birthday or not doing much around it, it's just another day, right? Is not consciously being aware that the day that the time of earth time that our spirit came into these bodies. And it is a celebration because while we're here, we're doing soul growth, right? We're in a PhD level school here on earth. And so if we don't celebrate it, we're not consciously acknowledging that we are spirit. Does that make sense? Do you guys agree with that? Let me know, okay? Let me know. I'm going to get caught up with you guys in the chat right now. So this is something that being a triple sag, and we can get rather philosophical about things, and kick that subject around a bit. And we're looking at it in every possible angle and sitting with it. And that's one of the things that brings me joy, is to be able to spend time doing that. I even like it better when we have an in-person conversation about it, because we learn so much. And I love seeing things from many different perspectives, at least as many as I can, and having that conversation, right? All right. Here's a comment from Rob. He says, I loved and shared. You just deal with it. I will. Thank you so much, Rob. Appreciate it. Karen's here too. Hi, Karen. It's good to have you here. She says, hi, Neshi. I fed myself through music, water, and lake time. Anytime I take time enjoying beauty and how certain things feel uplifting, I try noticing my intentions and my personal communications. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, the one of the things I wanted, this first thing that I brought up, those listed items, was that we have many of us have been taught how to feed our spirit, our soul, but maybe we weren't doing it consciously, you know. And many of us have been there. How many of us? Thank you, Karen, for sharing. How many of us have gone to church with our family and we really don't want to go, right? And the older we get, the less we went. And so, but there's things that evolve, right? And in that evolution of how we feed our souls, much like Karen wrote, we start doing things that make us feel happy and joyful. And that is feeding our soul, feeding our spirit. And it's even more so when we are consciously aware of it. And it's not that we have to be, how do I want to say that? Make it into work. That's defeating the purpose. It's when we find something that brings us joy and makes us happy, right? Like music. I know Rob loves music. I know that. And Karen mentioned through music, right? And I do too. But mine through music has more to do with dance than it does playing music. Okay. And so, in fact, just the other day, when I was doing my YouTube walkabout, I ran into a YouTube channel that is about exercise, but it's about Latin rhythm, and it counts steps and that kind of thing. And so, really, it's about dance, Latin dance, and so yeah, it makes working out or exercising fun. And so that's one way that feeds my spirit, and it's also doing something for my physical body. So it's a win-win, right? It's a win-win. Rob is saying I have to think about the birthday part. Yeah, toss it around in your mind a bit. Take a look at it, because when I sat with that, Rob, because there was sometime in my life where it's like, I don't need to celebrate it. I know I'm here. So I went from celebrating but not very consciously about it to not celebrating and being conscious about not celebrating, to now celebrating consciously about it and why I do it consciously. And it kind of evolved into that. Years and years ago, decades, what I would do on my birthday was I would send my parents flowers. And it was with a huge thank you. It's like, thank you for being my parents and bringing me into this world. I'm having a blast, kind of thing. And then that was more for them than it was for me. And then then I wasn't celebrating at all. It was just another day. And now it has more to do with me, with my spirit and my soul, and what that means to be in this physical body as a spirit, and how on that special day, on that day of alchemy, when this spirit entered this physical body, and how this journey began in that moment. Right. And so, sit with it for a bit, Rob, and see how you think or feel about it. Oh, let's change that. See how you think and feel about it. So it's just not, that mental kind of rotating it around a bit. It is that, but also notice what the feeling is that's attached to that. And that's where I was with it. It's like, okay, so how does this really feed my soul or my spirit to celebrate my birthday? And really, it brought me joy when I'm thinking about, that I have another trip around the sun, right? Or I accomplished a trip around the sun. Um, and it also means, for me, it also means going someplace nice to have dinner. Someone else is cooking, and there's nothing to clean up. And there's that celebration of being alive, being here to experience. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of sit with that a bit. See how it feels to you. Now, so the next piece that I was when I was contemplating and all of this is, are there other ways we recognize or nourish our soul? How do we do that? As not, and maybe in organizations that you belong to. Again, there's the religious aspect of it. And here's a short list that I came up with. I came up with a short list of how I experienced this. Paul has been in the military most of our married life. There is, and we've been to lots of different kinds of gatherings with that. Some of them informal, some of them very formal. And the very formal gatherings, like military balls and those kinds of things, right? One of the things that they do, and I meant to ask Paul because I know they have a term for it. When they set up the dining area, they have a small table, a two-person tabletop, in the restaurant world, but there's only a setting for one, and it's a complete setting. There's no food placed on it, but there is a complete setting. And that table That table represents those that are no longer here with us. So all of those veterans that have passed away, all those that were killed in war, all those were MIA, POWs, that they honor the spirit of those that are missing. And the first time I saw that, oh my gosh. And when it was explained to me how even now I get all verklempt over it, because it represents so many. And in many ways, it's kind of like the tomb of the unknown soldier, right? In many ways. And so that was my first experience with that. The other one is a little bit more closer to how I grew up. We have something in my family, in the Ho-Chunk and Potawatomi culture, that's called ghost meals. Ghost meals. And these ghost meals are meant for those loved ones that have walked on, and we're recognizing the day that they left us, right? That they walked on to be with the Creator. They went home. And so, for instance, with my mom, on the anniversary, November 30th, we'll have a meal for her. And what does that mean? That means that we're acknowledging her spirit, and we're feeding her spirit by with food. All of her favorite dishes are made, and we gather as a clan. We share the food, and what we do is we take a little bit of each item, each food item, each beverage, just a little bit in a bowl. And then we put tobacco in there. It's all a ceremony. We also do the pipe just before all that happens. We pass the pipe around, and also water. And we take a little bit of each of the food items. And then what we do is we take it out to the sacred fire. And the sacred fire had been lit before supper was ready to go. And so, and then we place the food and the tobacco into the fire. And with that is actually feeding her spirit. Okay. And so then we get to have all her favorite foods. She's eating with us, right? Yeah. And I have to tell you, the first year when after somebody walks on is kind of solemn and teary, and and we are sharing some stories about her around the table, or whoever that was that passed away. And we do this 4 years. For 4 years on that anniversary. And usually what happens is by the fourth year, when you're sitting around that table and you've done the ceremonies and you're eating, and somebody will start out, do you remember the time that? And so the stories aren't, the emotions aren't as raw, it's not as solemn and sad. There's a lot more laughter, and it's, talking about stuff that, oh yeah, they didn't know that we did this, and they never found out until so-and-so told them, those kinds of stories. They're fun. And so there's that process of that recognition. And, and there's still ghost meals for those who might have passed away even decades ago. Somebody might have a dream and have that person, that spirit as that person in their dream for whatever reason. And so it's acknowledging their presence. And so we do that to recognize our nourished spirit. There's something else that's along the same lines that again, the Lakota people do, and probably other nations as well. And that spirit plates. It's very similar, but a lot of times it's not necessarily for a specific person or spirit that came in as that specific person, right? Sometimes it's just to feed the spirits in general. And so maybe the youngest daughter, the youngest female, will go and help take the food, bits of the food. And then what they do is they take it out and they place it on the ground. Okay. And the ho chunk, when they do ghost meals, what they do is they take that food and they put it up high, like up in a crook of a tree or up in the eaves of the roof. And so, see, there's so much similarity with that, don't you think? That how we recognize and nourish spirit. Here's another one. When Minnie Kansman's daughter, Minnie's a good friend of mine, when her daughter got married a few years ago, I think it's like 3 years now, maybe 4, they had set up a table for the grandparents that had walked on. And so the table was filled with memorabilia from them or about them. So it would have been pictures, it would have been maybe keepsakes, those kinds of things. And so it brought their spirit to the wedding and their spirits were acknowledged. That's the other thing that we do. And I know that there's probably other people have done that in their weddings, for their weddings as well. Here's a couple other ones. There's Memorial Day here in the United States. Memorial Day was meant for us to recognize spirit of those military people who had died, and that evolved into recognizing and acknowledging anybody who had passed away, walked on. And so we go to the cemetery and we go to their gravesite, right? And spend a little time there acknowledging them. I recently did that with my dad, or for my dad. I went to his gravesite, and it had been like 6 years since I've been there because I wasn't able to really get there while Mom was here and living with us, because it's like a 2.5-hour drive one way. And so there's no way that I could do that whole trip without having somebody here with her. So along those lines, there's also Dia de Muertos, right? Day of the Dead, where in a lot of Hispanic countries, Latin countries, that they celebrate that day by going to the cemetery and literally having a meal at the cemetery with their loved one's spirit. And so and a lot of people call that Halloween as well. But the day after that, Halloween, is All Saints Day, which, some people use that day to recognize their loved ones that have walked on. See how we kind of, we may do it more unconsciously until you make that conscious leap, that evolution in your consciousness, where you realize, oh my goodness, we're spending time with this specifically, consciously, with a certain spirit, right? And if we can do it for them out of love and respect, then we should be able to do it for ourselves, don't you think? Out of love and respect for the spirit that we are. Yeah, think about that one a little bit, because I had to spend a little coffee time with that one to say, okay, so if we can make a special meal for them and share it with them, then why are we not doing that for ourselves on our birthdays? So I had to, kind of put that into kind of perspective. And let's see. Deanna's here. Deanna, hi. Good evening to you too. I get to meet Deanna tomorrow. Yay! Deanna's coming to the class. And I get to see Rob tomorrow too. Tomorrow night we start Journey of Remembering class tomorrow evening, and going through Sunday. So I can't wait. Can't wait to see Deanna in person. Tabitha's here too. Yay, Tabitha. Tabitha was just in the drum making workshop with me this past Saturday. She says, hey, Neshi, I nourish my soul with many things. Time alone, nature, good times with close friends, good food, music, taking time to appreciate nature's beauty, rainbows, sunsets, sunrises, animals, flowers, and etc. And that's all consciously done, right? Tabitha, right? You're consciously taking a moment, consciously saying, I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to go sit out on the porch, or, something like that. And And nature brings themselves to you, so you recognize, you think, oh, look at that rainbow, right? Look at that flower. Watching the leaves blow in the wind, right? Yeah. So we're consciously doing that, which makes a huge difference, doesn't it? Makes a huge difference. It helps bring our spirit to the forefront. That's the part of us that is in appreciation of what we're seeing and what we're experiencing. And it's in that appreciation through our physical self, right? Yeah. I just love it. I do. When I turn my mind to it and I consider and mull it over, and you kind of think about it. And that's a part of the process of becoming consciously aware of it. And eventually it becomes a habit. And you're just living your life that way. You're just going outside just and taking in all the beauty and allowing your spirit to soar, right? Allowing your spirit to really experience it. And what I mean by allowing your spirit's already doing it. Your soul is already doing it. It's us mentally taking the time to turn our minds to it and appreciate it, right? Yeah. Doesn't that start Thursday? Well, actually, the actual class does start Thursday, but we're doing a little bit of a meet and greet, remember, on Wednesday night? Yeah. Just to kind of bring everybody together is all. All right. And so Tabitha's saying definitely a conscious pause. Yes. That came out of the class, the drum making class. Yes, it's a conscious pause. All right. So the next piece is, how do we consciously nourish our soul? How do we consciously do that? And here's how I consciously do it. So I don't know. Why don't you guys share with me how you consciously, both Tabitha and Karen kind of encapsulated theirs, right? But what they do. But how do we consciously do that? So the most recent one has been, I am my soul. That phrase that my spiritual team gave to me months and months and months ago. I think it was January. I was in meditation and I heard them say to me, imagine what it would be like if you believed that you are your soul, that your soul is out here in front of you and around you. And that's what people sense or feel before they actually get to your personality, right? And so they had me practicing all the time, anytime during my day. And I have to say, you have to be careful when you do this when you're driving. So yeah, just be careful when you're operating large machinery. That when you feel what it's like, that I am my soul. And of course, meditation. And meditation can happen anywhere, right? It can happen in my meditation room that's completely dark. My meditation can happen out in the Four Seasons porch. My meditation can happen while I'm taking that walk out in the woods. So that's time in nature or quiet time. Time that's not taken up by the television or the computer or the cell phone, right? That's when you were doing it consciously. And here's one. Daydreaming. It does feed my soul. It feeds my spirit to daydream, to dream about what could be, how would it be, what would it feel like, what could it be like, seem like. Right? And so you do a little bit of daydreaming. And celebrating those birthdays, those anniversaries, any kind of celebration and playtime. Yeah. At playtime. How many of us actually do playtime? Not many. We think about it. We think we're playing until we overthought it so much that it's no longer playing, right? Yeah, I know. Playtime sometimes is about games. Paul and I, we love trivia. And so let's see, we started doing this before COVID and during COVID, but a lot of people didn't find out about it until COVID. Is that there's a lot of online trivia that you can play. And so because we weren't able to really get out and do that much, we found a way that we could. We love playing. I love playing Scrabble. Paul will only play Scrabble with me on a couple occasions, New Year's and my birthday. And so playing games, puzzles, jigsaw puzzles. Now we have to be careful with that one though around here because it can become addictive, and we can turn it into a job. It's like we got to get this piece done. Yeah, we turn it into something that's goal oriented. But there is some fun to it. We have friends when they stop in, and we're working on a puzzle, they'll sit down and they'll work with us, that sort of thing. So it can be fun. It can be fun. So, what do you do? What do you do, consciously do, to feed your soul, to feed your spirit? For me, it goes beyond the religious piece, right? It can include that. It can. But for me, that it covers everything. The mental body, the emotional body, the physical body, right? And the spiritual body. So to be able to feed your spirit through all of those avenues, is when we can really find fun. And some people would even call it a quality life. A quality life. So let's see. I'll have been 8.5 hours. Don't expect much. Okay, I won't. And it's not. It's just to say hi and bring us together is all really, Rob. And Deanna says, love daydreaming, massage, ionic foot baths too. Yes. Yes. And sometimes, okay, here's another one. I just thought of this one, and I haven't done it in a while. But whether you take a warm or a cold compress, I like the warm, and you recline, and you put that over your eyes, right? And so it just relaxing, and it feels good. And so when I take it off my eyes, I feel rested. I feel rejuvenated. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, and so when we do it consciously, it makes a huge, huge difference. And this topic for this evening really was about for us to turn our attention to it. And so that we can make a decision for ourselves is how do we want to do this consciously? Because the more often we do it, consciously, it becomes a part of our lifestyle. It's just the way we live our lives. It's nothing that turns into work, right? Yeah. Julie says meditation, spending time with your animals, who share my home, and writing as journaling, all feed my soul. Oh, that's a good one. Good one, Julie. When we spend time with our pets, right? When we're walking Georgie, playing with Georgie, we just got him some agility equipment. And so, spending time, it's going to take him a little bit in training us and how to do it correctly. But the thing is that, it's spending time and being excited about it. Because really, George just really wants us to be happy. And when we're happy and playful with him, that is huge for him. And so, and writing, journaling, most definitely, Julie. I actually I've told Paul this the other day, I miss that structured writing that I had for the magazine. Now, it's taken me 6 months to get to that point. But yeah, that sitting down and writing, journaling. It's not quite, yeah, it's not quite the same kind of journaling that I think that some people do, like the morning, writing in your journal in the morning, right? There's a practice to that. Mine has kind of evolved into around, I have to take my glucose readings twice a day, right? And so, depending on what those readings are, a lot of times I'll write little notes on the side, like, I know why my readings are kind of high this morning. It's because we had pizza for supper, or um, we had company, and we did more of a picnic kind of thing. And so there was a lot of food there that isn't the best for me, but I ate it anyway. Um, yeah, and then, who is here and that kind of thing, and emotions around all of that. And so the journaling is kind of growing out of or into, um, being mindful of my physical body and how my glucose readings are really attached to my emotions. When my readings are pretty good emotionally, I'm happy, I'm, good to go. When I am under more stress, or things that are occurring that are not exactly, happy, my glucose readings show a much higher reading. So, and that, is something that I just recently connected with. I went, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. So thanks for that, Julie. Don't say the W word. I know, right? It's a 4-letter word. Clara says, when I talk and share memories of my parents, my nieces, wanted some of my mom's handwritten recipe and could share the story around those recipes. Oh, Clara, that is so sweet. Yeah. We forget, I think, around, those kinds of, items, because, I thought I had dispersed all of mom's stuff, right? And, we were doing some of that renovation in the kitchen, remember? And in one of the cabinets, that I have my recipe stuff in and cooking instructions in, I had to take everything out because, the guys were going to start working in that area, and they needed that cabinet empty. And so as I was emptying it out, I was looking at all the stuff, and I realized I still had, um, my mom's recipe spiral bound notebook kind of thing, and a recipe box. And so, I was looking through it, and I did copy down some of the ones out of the box. But the notebook one was the one that was like, "Oh, man." She would write who she got the recipe from, how they were related, if they were related. And, in Native American world, we that holds a lot of love and a lot of energy. Who are your relation? And so she would even write that in the notes, on the side. Um, or give us a little hints. It's like, this was really good. Or in another one, it was like, cut this in half, it makes it better. Yeah. So I know what you mean, Clara. So thank you for sharing that. I did pass on the recipes to the oldest granddaughter, my oldest niece, and so that she has that now with all those nice little memories that go along with it. Yeah. So this topic, um, has been joyful for me. It really has. To be able to, take a look at how I feed my soul, how I consciously feed my spirit, and then how I consciously feed spirit of those that have walked on, consciously feeding spirit, in general. And I realized that it's more of a lifestyle for me. That when it becomes a lifestyle, sometimes we take little things for granted. right? And so it's always good to kind of pause, that conscious pause, and really kind of just take a look at it, sit with it for a bit, and you come to realizations about how much things have evolved and changed and shifted, which is all good. It's all good. And those memories that we have around how we came to how we feed spirit. Okay. Now, the one about the communion, that had a lot of memories for me. Yeah. And one of them, there was a lot of them. So for my own time with communion and what that meant for me, that was a lot of realization that I didn't really fit in a organized church and the beliefs that were in there. And when the pastor said that women were less than, right? I think I was 12, and I just quietly closed my book, walked to the front, and handed it back to him. And so yeah, that was a memory. And there was also a memory around my mom, of course, because that's all pretty recent. And when she took her last communion, and how the hospice pastor came to help her with that, and it was such a sweet moment. It really was. It really was. And so yeah, and so how our lives evolves around this, right? And where is it in your life? Where is it in your life? So here's one thing that I did do. I did go back in Star Nations magazine. We have 6 years of magazines, right? That's what, 72 issues. No, more than that. More than that. We have, I think, 94 issues in total. That's a lot. That's a lot of content. That's a lot of really good information that's still out there. And so what I did was I selected 3 magazines, back issues from 2019, and that had articles, topics in there about spirit and about our souls. And here's the first one that I chose. I think I'm going to give it a solo here. This is April 2019, issue 71. I just love this picture. And it talks about the sacred medicines of the Anishinaabe, which is the Ojibwa. And yeah, some of the articles in this particular issue I thought you might enjoy, as we're talking about how we feed spirit. How we feed spirit. That's April 2019. I'll put these in the comments so that you guys can, if you want, be able to go out there and get them if you want to. Okay. And the next one is February 2019. Yeah, evolving through the dimensions of our heart. And the heart chakra and building sacred sites. That's a great article. And then attaining ultimate freedom. And so that's issue February 2019, issue 69. That's the first kind of blue and white, black and white photo we ever used on the cover. And the next one is the one from Colorado. And this is October 2019, issue 77. Awakening to Source Light, Festivals of Death and Resurrection, Free Will versus Giving Away Your Power. There's some really great articles in this one too. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to select just a few of the past issues, because it's kind of hard. They're also good. And all right, I'm going to put the issue titles in the comment for you. And just a second here. Oh, man. It's so I just have to type slow. There we go. Be Live didn't want me to do it a certain way, so I had to do it slower in a different place. Okay, and then what you can, if you want, you can get the past issues from our partners at MagClown. And I'll have the link there for you. There you go. Yeah, I actually have that all cut and paste. It's just that I wanted to make sure that it was the past issues on that one. It's good. All right, so here we are looking at June 15th. And so we have a couple more Tuesdays in this month. I believe I'm going to take a look at my calendar. Paul and I were talking about our next couple of camping trips. And I'm just double checking to make sure. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm not sure if I'll be back in time by the 29th. I'll get my fingers crossed, but it's possible that I might not be here on the 29th. But I'll let you guys know. Okay, I'll let you guys know. It's a possibility that we're still going to be out, traveling back actually, and we'll see how that goes. So anyway, there we go. That's about feeding your spirit. I was hoping that that we could also talk a little bit, now that we get just a little bit of time, talk a little bit about tobacco. Okay, so tobacco, native tobacco to Turtle Island, North America. There's many stories from indigenous people about how we received tobacco from the Creator. But one of the stories that I know of, and that comes from the Potawatomi Nation, is that the tobacco was given to the people by the Creator as a way to feed spirit. Right. Because it's a sacred plant. And the Creator gave the seeds of the tobacco to the Potawatomi, to a woman, and taught her how to plant the seeds, take care of the seeds, the plants, how to harvest, how to dry, and how to use the tobacco. And so when we give tobacco, we're giving to the spirit. And because spirit doesn't have access to that sacred plant as spirit, that it's only those of us spirits that are in a physical body that we have access to that. And so it is a part of, if you will, communion in a way, with spirit. And so many of you have been with me in a class, and we do a tobacco giving ceremony before we start making drums or doing, the awakening, the illuminated heart classes, information. And you've heard me on how I give tobacco, right? How we do the ceremony. And so I take a pinch and I give to each, like to the Creator. We give it to Grandmother Earth. We give it to the thunders, to the grandpa thunders, and we also give it to all bodies of water, all things green, to the four directions, to the four seasons. We also give it to all the animals, right? The four-legged, even the two-legged. Those who fly, those who swim, those who crawl. Yeah, and so when we do that, we're giving it to the spirit. We're feeding the spirit. We also special drums that are meant for spiritual purposes, right? Not so much social drums. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. Is to take some tobacco and to sprinkle it on the drum head, and kind of, that's feeding the spirit within that drum. And so we do use tobacco in many ways to feed spirit. And so sometimes it's for me. I shouldn't generalize too much, but for myself, sometimes I don't think about giving tobacco for myself, and not until there's something like really wrong, like I'm sick, or that kind of thing. There has to be some sort of catastrophe, whether it's a tornado or something like that. But we don't necessarily give tobacco to our own spirit. I had to sit with that for a while too. Yeah. We do give for certain times of the year, the change of the seasons, right? Yeah. And when we do that, we also take a pinch and we say our name in there. And so it's like we kind of do, but it's not really consciously. It's not like giving tobacco to be grateful and to be thankful for this life or my health, or it's always something has to be wrong first before we do that. But that's just the way we were taught. And so the other day when I was doing this preparation, I was thinking, I might be doing some changes around that and doing it more proactively and more consciously about what we're grateful for right now. And that's feeding our spirit. Yeah. So I'm going to leave you with that. Kind of mull it over and see what you think. Mm-hmm. Claire's asking, is there a special type of tobacco you use? Well, yes and no. For a long, long time, it was just pipe tobacco, like Prince Albert in the can kind of tobacco. We just used a very plain, nothing added to it, no flavorings or that kind of thing. And then kind of go forward a bit, and now we have more organic tobacco, commercially made spirit. What is that called? Spirit. I've got lots of it too. Natural spirit, native spirit. Anyway, I'll get you the name, Clara, and you can. And it's it's very very plain. There's nothing in it. You want to use pipe tobacco, not chewing tobacco, because it's too sticky. Commercially made. There is something called Indian tobacco or native tobacco, and that is grown from seed. And we've got lots of different places you can get it up here. I do have some because I did grow some, and so there you go. You can find that. It's kind of difficult. You have to be around a native community sometimes to be able to find it. But yeah. You can get just regular pipe tobacco though. Tobacco or sage? Tobacco. Um, it's one of the four sacred plants, and the tobacco is the one that feeds the spirits. Yeah. What time is the meet? It's around 6 p.m. We'll go from 6 to 9. So it depends on, let me know what time you're going to be leaving Michigan. Okay. You can do a PM me, right? Okay. Natural American Spirit. Thank you, Rob. I could, you know what? I could picture the light blue pouch. I just couldn't get the name. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, we're at the top of the hour. I wanted to thank you guys for being with me tonight. And I do appreciate it and to have this conversation. I love reading your comments, and we learn so much from each other, don't we? I think we do. So enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night, and we'll see you next week for Communications from Home and Bama Mina. That's Potawatomi for until we see each other again. I love you guys.